Your Ford has a dashboard feature that was fully functional, genuinely useful, and then quietly locked away. And the reason it's gone has nothing to do with whether it works, and everything to do with a regulation most owners have never heard of. I've been working on Fords for over 15 years, and I get the same frustrated question constantly. Why can't I type an address into my own navigation while I'm driving? Why does my screen gray out the second I start rolling? Today, I'm going to show you exactly what Ford took away, why they were essentially forced to remove it, and the documented method owners are using to bring it back. Let's get into it. Here's what we're actually talking about. On older Fords, and I mean the Sync and Sync 2 era, plus early Sync 3 trucks, you could sit in the driver's seat and enter a navigation destination while the vehicle was moving. You could scroll through your radio station list, edit settings, input text, and on certain configurations, even feed video to the center screen. None of that was hidden or hacked. It was just how the system worked. Then, somewhere between model years, owners noticed their screens started throwing up a message the moment the wheels turned. The message said, "For your safety, some features are not available while the vehicle is in motion." The functions did not break. They got deliberately switched off above a few miles per hour. That's the feature Ford removed, and understanding why is the whole story. The reason traces back to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Years ago, NHTSA published a set of driver distraction guidelines aimed at automakers, and the core idea was simple. Any task on an in-dash screen that takes a driver's eyes off the road for too long or requires too many glances should not be available while the car is moving. Typing a full address is the textbook example. It pulls your eyes down, it takes many seconds, and it is exactly the kind of interaction the guidelines targeted. Now, these guidelines were technically voluntary rather than a hard federal mandate the way an airbag or a seatbelt is mandated, but that distinction means almost nothing in practice. No manufacturer wants to be the one company whose infotainment system gets named in a distraction study, a federal investigation, or a wrongful death lawsuit where a plaintiff's attorney argues the car made it easy to type while driving. The legal exposure alone was enough. So Ford, like nearly every other automaker on the market, programmed a speed-based lockout into the system. Below a crawl, the full keyboard and menus are available. Once you are rolling past a few miles per hour, large chunks of the interface freeze. That is the entire mechanism. It is not Ford being malicious. It is Ford reading the regulatory and legal climate and deciding it had no real choice. Now, here is the part that makes owners genuinely angry, and I think it is a completely fair complaint. The lockout does not know who is touching the screen. It assumes the driver is the only person in the vehicle. So when you have a passenger sitting right there, perfectly capable of punching in a destination or scrolling through music, the system locks them out just as aggressively as it would lock out the driver. You end up with a fully able adult in the passenger seat, hands-free, eyes-free, unable to change a radio station or enter an address, while the driver is forced to either pull over or fumble with clumsy voice commands that half the time mishear what you are saying. The technology that decides all this is just a single vehicle speed signal. It has no idea whether there are two people in the cabin or one. There is no camera checking who reached for the screen, no weight sensor logic tied to the infotainment lockout, nothing. It is a blunt on-off switch tied to how fast the wheels are turning. That is the design flaw owners have been working around for years, and it is why this is not really a story about reckless drivers wanting to text behind the wheel. It is about a crude safety tool that punishes the passenger in order to protect the driver and never stops to tell the difference between them. So how do owners get the feature back? This is where it gets interesting, and I want to be precise here because there's a lot of bad information floating around online. The functionality was never physically deleted from your vehicle. It is controlled by a configuration value stored in the APIM, the Accessory Protocol Interface module, the computer behind your sync screen, the brain that runs the whole infotainment system. Inside that module is a setting that corresponds to your region or market. Different countries have different distraction laws, so Ford does something clever and cost-effective. It ships the same physical hardware everywhere in the world and simply flips a regional code that tells your specific truck which set of rules to enforce. Some markets allow far more on-screen interaction while moving than the United States does. Because the hardware is identical across all those vehicles, changing that regional value effectively tells your Ford to behave like a unit that rolled off the line destined for a more permissive market. You are not adding anything. You are not hacking in a capability that was not there. You are flipping a switch that was already inside your truck the entire time. The tool owners use for this is called FORScan. It is an inexpensive software program that runs on a Windows laptop and connects to your vehicle through the OBD2 diagnostic port under the dashboard, the same port a mechanic plugs into to read trouble codes when your check engine light comes on. FORScan is remarkably affordable. The software itself has a free version that does everything you need for this, and the adapter cable that bridges your laptop to the OBD2 port costs somewhere in the range of $20 to $60, depending on which one you buy. The better quality dedicated adapters sit at the higher end of that range, and for a job like this, it is worth buying a known good one rather than the cheapest no-name cable, because a flaky connection while you are writing to a module is exactly the situation you want to avoid. Once you are connected, FORScan lets you read and rewrite the configuration values inside modules like the APIM. The specific edit owners document lives in the APIM configuration block. On many Sync 2 and Sync 3 vehicles, it is the address commonly written as 7D0-02-01, and on some newer Sync 4 trucks, it is a closely related block instead. The value owners change it to is the one that enables full navigation and menu access while the vehicle is in motion, essentially the regional setting used in markets that permit it. After you write the change, the system typically acts a little glitchy for the first few ignition cycles. The screen might look slightly off, menus might flicker, and that is expected and documented. You simply start the truck a handful of times. Owners report cycling it 3 to 5 times until the system settles and behaves normally. From that point on, the in-motion restriction on navigation and menu functions is gone, and it stays gone. Now, I need to give you the same warnings the experienced owners give each other, because this is genuinely not consequence-free, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest and would get someone in trouble. The single most important rule before you touch anything: back up the module first. FORScan lets you save the existing configuration of the APIM before you change a single value, and you save that backup file somewhere safe where you won't lose it. If anything goes wrong, or if you simply don't like the result, you write those original values back, and you're exactly where you started, as if you'd never done anything at all. Never, ever skip the backup. The owners who've been doing this for years repeat that instruction like a religious mantra, and the reason is simple. The one reliable way to turn a fully reversible 5-minute tweak into an expensive trip to the dealership is to change values blind with no recorded way back to factory. Write down or save the original numbers. That backup is your undo button. The second warning is specific, real, and important. On certain Sync 4 trucks, particularly some 2021 and 2022 F-150 trucks, owners reported that after making this change, the 911 Assist feature disappeared entirely from the settings screen. 911 Assist is the system that automatically places a call to emergency services through your paired phone if you are in a serious crash and the airbags deploy. That is absolutely not a feature to lose casually, especially if you regularly drive alone, drive at night, or cover long stretches of rural road where a crash might not be witnessed by anyone. If you make this change and you notice 911 Assist has vanished from your menu, you have a decision to make, and for most people, the safe decision is to restore your backup and keep the emergency calling feature active. This is exactly why the backup matters so much. It lets you reverse course the moment you discover a trade-off you are not willing to accept. The choice is yours, but you should make it with full knowledge of what is on the table, not find out later when you need that feature most. The third reality worth knowing is that Ford has been steadily closing these doors over time. On newer Sync 4 software versions, the older FORScan method that worked beautifully on earlier builds has been patched out and simply no longer applies. The community generally discovers new workarounds eventually, because that is what enthusiast communities do, but it means the exact procedure depends heavily on your specific model year and your current software version. There is no single universal sequence that works on every Ford ever built, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling you something or has not done their homework. What works on a 2018 Sync 3 truck is not what works on a 2024 model. And here is a subtle trap. A software update pushed wirelessly to your vehicle can quietly undo a change you made months ago, reverting your screen to the lockdown behavior without warning. If you go down this road, you research the procedure for your exact vehicle and your exact software version, you keep your backup, and you understand that an update may send you back to square one. For owners who don't want to connect a laptop to their truck at all, and that's a lot of people because the idea of writing data to a car's computer makes plenty of folks nervous, there's a second path, and it's the one many quietly choose, an aftermarket interface module. Companies build plug-and-play harnesses that install behind the center screen and handle the lockout bypass in hardware rather than software. Many of these modules go a step further and add a dedicated video input so a passenger can run a screen from a phone, a tablet, a game console, or another source while the vehicle is moving. The big selling point of these kits is that they are designed to be installed without cutting or splicing a single wire. They tap into existing factory connectors, sitting in line between the screen and the rest of the system. That plug-and-play design matters for two reasons. First, it means the installation is reversible. Unplug the module and your truck is bone stock again. Second, and this is the clever part, because the bypass lives in the added hardware rather than in a configuration value Ford controls, a software update cannot patch it out the way it can undo a FORScan edit. These kits cost more than the FORScan route, generally running well over $100 and often considerably more depending on your specific vehicle and whether you want the video capability included. But for someone who is not comfortable rewriting module configurations with a laptop, it is a cleaner and more durable option. If you are finding this useful and you own a Ford, take a second right now to hit that like button and subscribe, because understanding what your vehicle is genuinely capable of is exactly the kind of thing the dealership will never sit you down and walk you through. Now, I want to be completely straight with you about the word in the title because honesty is the entire point of this channel, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise to sell a thumbnail. Is this feature actually illegal? Not in the sense that you'll be handcuffed for re-enabling it on a vehicle you own. Modifying the configuration of a car you've paid for is, broadly, your right. What's genuinely true is that the feature was removed specifically to comply with safety regulations and distraction guidelines, and that the very same capability remains perfectly legal in some markets around the world while being restricted here. So it sits in a real gray zone rather than a clean yes or no. The video, while moving function in particular, is something certain markets permit and the United States does not, which is precisely why changing the regional code unlocks it, because you are literally instructing your truck to follow a different country's rule book. That's the honest version of the illegal feature they removed story. It was removed for regulatory and liability reasons. It remains legal elsewhere on Earth, and bringing it back places the responsibility squarely on your shoulders. And that responsibility is the one thing I will not dance around or soften. The reason this lockout exists in the first place, even in its clumsy passenger-punishing form, is that drivers typing addresses and scrolling through menus at highway speed genuinely cause crashes, and genuinely kill people. The regulation overcorrected by ignoring the passenger entirely, and that's a legitimate, well-earned frustration that I share. But the underlying danger it was built to address is absolutely real and well documented. If you re-enable in-motion functionality so that your passenger can handle navigation and control the system while you keep both hands on the wheel, that's a sensible, reasonable use, the kind of thing the original design should have allowed from day one. If instead you re-enable it so that you, the driver, can type and watch video while the truck is moving, you've recreated the exact hazard the lockout was built to prevent, and no clever configuration change on Earth makes that safe. The tool itself is neutral. How you choose to use it is not. The smart owners I know use this to give their passengers back the control they always should have had, and they keep their own eyes on the road where they belong. So here's where all of this leaves you. The feature Ford took away was never deleted. It was switched off by a regional configuration value to satisfy distraction regulations and limit the company's legal exposure, and it can be switched back on either through FORScan on a laptop or through a plug-and-play aftermarket module. Provided you back up your settings first, watch carefully for the 911 assist issue on newer trucks, and confirm the exact procedure for your specific model year and software version. It's reversible, it's region-dependent, and at the end of the day, it's entirely your call to make. Most owners spend years assuming a grayed-out screen is simply how their truck is, and that nothing can be done about it. Now you know better than that. Take an afternoon, research your exact vehicle properly, and decide for yourself whether this one's worth it. If this helped you understand your Ford a little better, do me a favor and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment telling me whether the in-motion lockout has ever driven you up the wall with a passenger sitting right there next to you. If you want to know about the factory settings that are quietly wearing out your engine without you ever realizing it, I have a video on exactly that coming up next that every single Ford owner needs to see. I will catch you in that one.